I am Marcus James Dixon with Gold Derby, and we would like to welcome Bowen Yang, who just completed his fifth season of Saturday Night Live and the 49th season overall. Bowen, what are your feelings as we get closer and closer to this monumental number of season 50? Like, that's huge.
Yeah, I feel just general awe. I feel like a huge sense of not incredulousness, but just like, I mean, I think about a lot of things. I think about on the number end, like 50 years being this impossibly expansive amount of time. Um, Certainly, like you kind of think about the totality of the show in that in those 50 years and how kind of overwhelming that can be if you think too long about it. But overall, like we just had our finale and the sense of camaraderie that's there, that's always been there. But I feel like, oh, if I can like extrapolate this all the way back to 1975, like that is so much human connection and craftsmanship and hard work and experimentation and all of these things that the show embodies. Like I think about that and I just can't help but get emotional and again like get awestruck at that idea and that concept. And it's all tied back to Lorne Michaels and all the producers who've come and been on that journey with him and us and who've supported people and launched their careers. I mean, it's really, for lack of a better word, crazy to think about.
And speaking of the finale, Jake Gyllenhaal was the host over the weekend, and you got to work with him very closely on the bike trail sketch as well as the Beautiful Boys musical scene. What were your thoughts on the finale and Jake's hosting job?
He's so capable and he's so enthusiastic, and you really can throw anything at him, and he will approach it both in the proper actorly way of just like examining the text and trying to figure out like the motivational things that normally don't really belong in a sketch comedy setting. But that's just his process and it works. And he can pair that alongside like a more frivolous approach that we are more used to at SNL, that we're more accustomed to, where we're just like, you just do the funny voice, you put on the funny wig, and you just give it up to God. And he kind of is that perfect platonic ideal of a host who can embody that. And we've had a lot of this season too. And it's been a very fortuitous roster of hosts, I think. And
Mm.
but Jake is sort of the perfect person to send off this really interesting season, which I think was perfectly encapsulated in the monologue where it's like 49. It's just like what's remarkable about it except for the fact that it is like teeing up 50. But like you need 49 in order to get to 50. And so this is setting so much it's so much wonderful tone setting for what's about to come.
Yeah, I love that 49 was addressed in the monologue because I mean, I knew 50 was coming up, you knew 50, but I mean, did the average viewer know like we're so close? Maybe they didn't, and maybe that helped
Right.
them learn.
Exactly. And I think it is going to, I don't know, like so Tina Fey came in this week to help out on something. We got to chat for a second and she was talking about how like this feels like potentially the last normal season that we're going to have in a while. Which is not to say that 50 is going to be like the last final season of anything or the final season for anybody in my head, but I feel like she's talking about that in terms of like 49 is going to be like we're going to look back on this season as like, oh, that was the bellwether for like so many things like before the election and before 50 and before things really ramped up for the 50th season, and then what happens beyond that, which is another question that we literally all have. So I have no answers to give on that
Mhm.
end. But yeah, this was I really appreciate this season for um giving us a lot of wonderful moments for everybody. I think we really emerged as like an ensemble cast this year. I feel like we all shared the ball in a very nice way, and it's been really great.
Can we just talk about Maya Rudolph's mother monologue last week? I mean, people online were already screaming, give her the Emmy Award before that performance had even ended. What was
Finished.
it like to
Yeah.
be there?
Oh my God, incredible. I mean, she is another host who like embodies all the right things, but then to have her be an alumnus, to have her just like just to know that she's taken her lumps and put in the hard yards, but it's also like such a natural is one of the best to ever do it, in my opinion. And to have that high production monologue that only someone like her can pull off, because a lot of times, like the monologue is such an interesting part of the show. You need it. You can't gloss over it. Every host needs a monologue. But the monologue can sometimes end up being cursory depending on how the rest of the show is and depending on how the host feels about the show and or what they're comfortable doing as themselves. It's kind of the only time the host is themselves most of the time. But for Maya to be able to execute on this very demanding concept just says everything about her. And I was just honored to even be in frame for any part of it.
And also in that episode, there was this genius sketch where she channels a famous actress for a coffee commercial, and you played
Couple
the
famous
director.
actresses.
Is there, I mean, I feel like this is part of, there's a background to this that maybe I'm not aware of. Was there anybody she was channeling specifically?
Well, the fictional actress she was playing, based on no one in particular, was named Dawn Faraway, and it was also inspired by the High Point coffee commercials with Lauren Bacall. And so, there was certainly like a beautiful sort of like double helix of Bacall and Faye Dunaway, who we will say has probably infused some of her essence into. But what's funny is I think this was the execution of James Anderson and Kent Sublette, who had tried for several iterations to write like a sketch that was based off the High Point coffee commercial. Um, and I think with Maya coming back, a lot of the alumnus writers, the writers who are typically would typically work with the cast members who are come back to host, kind of are able to come back in and just sort of like try to throw some balls that they missed, quote unquote, the first time. And I think that was what happened here was that it was James Anderson, Ken Siblett, Allison Gates, and Maya also had a hand in writing it too and shaping it. And I mean, I was also very honored to be a part of that.
Hmm. The Ryan Gosling episode will go down in history as one of the funniest ever. You had a sketch with him. You played Dr. Please, and he was Jeffrey Thank You.
Yeah.
The audience started laughing as soon as you stepped out wearing that long wig and the glasses. And this doctor, I mean, maybe he killed somebody, maybe he didn't, but he loved his cookie crumbles, Bowen.
Yeah. Yes, he did. This was also a very fun conception in terms of it being he was just kind of a throwaway character in the Nate Bargatze episode. There's a sketch in the Nate Bargatze episode from this season where a woman goes into labor on an airplane. Everyone's desperately asking if there's a doctor on board. This person, we don't know his name at the time, but his doctor, please, shows up and says, "I'm a kind of doctor," and they're like, "Not you." And so the writers of that sketch, Mike DiCenzo and Jake Nordwind, and I were kind of circling different shows, being like, is this the show to bring him back for? Like, we were like, we definitely want to like write a whole sketch around him because he needs more than this throwaway cameo. And so Gosling seemed like the perfect host for that. The cookie crumbles came in, in a delirium at 1 a.m. on Tuesday night, and I think it worked. And I didn't realize that Ryan Gosling, for his perfectly valid reasons, does not want to eat anything on camera, especially on
Mm.
live television. So I kept trying to feed him spoonfuls of the cookie crumbles while he was rapidly feeding me mine, and he was just being like a very stubborn baby in the best way, where he was like, I'm not eating that. And it was so funny to have that revealed in the moment because we were just kind of miming it to each other until the show. And he was just so funny. It's just, I mean, I think the quality and caliber of that show in particular speaks to him elevating everything, right? And it's contagious. His joy, his excitement to be there is so contagious. We were all having such a great time the entire show, the entire week. He's the best.
And earlier this season, when Sydney Sweeney hosted, there was this pre-taped sketch called Bowen Straight, where we find out you've just been pretending to be gay all these years because
Right.
it's a shortcut to laughs. How fun was that to do?
So fun. I mean, that felt like cashing in on this investment that I was making for 5 seasons at this point, where um I feel like I've built a certain wheelhouse, and I've been very happy to play in that wheelhouse. I've been very proud to play in that wheelhouse, but I feel like, I come on screen and people have an expectation of what's going to happen. And uh, this was a nice way to sort of subvert that and have it all be kind of farcical. And we made the choice to having me not like necessarily like lower my voice or anything or like change the mannerisms because that's not necessarily what like heterosexuality is. But we just wanted to play up these like toxic behavioral things, right? Like that, like I would be this like womanizing, you know, kind of like just Lothario, fly by night kind of guy. And it was so fun to play with that. So that was Gary Richardson, Will Steven, August White, and I kind of writing that and trying it out on different hosts and it not quite coming to fruition. But then Sydney was so game. She had all the right instincts. The moment where where I say I'm into blondes and she looks at her hair as if she's discovering that she's a blonde, was all her. I mean, she brought this like sultriness to it that made it work. I mean, like we scored it with this like Portishead like song, but like she really convincingly acted her way into that pre-tape, which is that like she was so enamored with me for whatever reason, and she sold it. I mean, I kind of just had fun being, a prick for lack of a better word, but she really made it kind of sing as like a narrative piece. So I really think she deserves so many accolades for that.
Mm. And you always, whenever you appear on Weekend Update, I feel like you go viral, whether it's the iceberg or the Oompa Loompa. This year you were Christopher Columbus, who he just kept discovering everything.
Yeah.
The Hot Ones TV show, Ice Spice. So you had a lot of fun portraying him, I felt.
Yeah, I did. I mean, that was the perfect sort of like premiere thing, just to like take a big swing with the character. It is just sort of like kind of laughable that anyone would be portraying Christopher Columbus, but that I, as someone who has no connection to anything Italian or Spanish or, you know, anything to do with that whole narrative. We were just coming off of Columbus Day because the season started late because of the strikes, and I was like, oh, we haven't done a Christopher Columbus thing in a while, and just put her through. But then update this week was really fun. Update this season was really fun. It was a nice little range of him and George Santos right before he got expelled, and then a Truman Capote thing, which I really wanted to do because I was reading up on all of the stuff after the Feud show came out, and I was just like, oh, he's such a fascinating character that's been like right under my nose this whole time. I loved Breakfast at Tiffany's. I loved In Cold Blood. I just didn't know the level of vitriol that he was like putting out there against these women. And there's something kind of like thematically interesting about putting like this man who loves women but hates them too. And that is there's something kind of socially queer about that. Like the way that gay men evaluate women around them is kind of the only thing we're relegated to do sometimes, but it also like creates this really complex dynamic with them. And so that was fun to just sort of like encapsulate into a Weekend Update piece. So yeah, I had a lot of fun this year with that.
Mhm. You mentioned SNL's legacy earlier and Lorne Michaels. Who is somebody behind the scenes that you would call an unsung hero of SNL? Somebody that doesn't get us a lot of credit and they deserve the credit?
Oh wow. I mean, so many people. I can't narrow it
Yeah.
to just one. It's like everyone in the control room who just if we were to ever put their headsets on, like they have like 10 people screaming into their ear during the show at any given time, like you would go mad. Like I would end up in some sort of institution if I were to like even put their headsets on for one moment. I mean, the shots they're calling literally, the graphics that are put in, the lower thirds, the treatments, the stage managers. We have wonderful stage managers, Eddie Valk, Jenna Rositano, Christopher Kelly, the entire floor team. I mean, like, it is such a titanic operation, just literally on an operational level. It is inconceivable the way that it happens, and that's sort of the takeaway that everyone has when they come to the show is they go, I didn't realize how crazy this all came to, like how like the fact that there haven't been any like injuries or like no deaths like, and I don't anticipate them to be. I'm not gonna knock on wood. Like it just won't happen. Like this is such a well-oiled machine that still allows for like experimentation and breaks in form and for people to try out different sensibilities. I mean, we've had so many sketches this season that like just like on a diegetic level, like took a lot of thought from the directors and the stage managers to like figure out how to make it look because these are just ideas that come into our heads on Tuesday night. And then for them to be executed on Saturday is always a miracle.
Mm.
And I think it's like it really is like such a huge team effort. And I know that sounds so, like hackneyed, but like nowhere else is it more true than at SNL.
Did you always see SNL as sort of a dream job when you were growing up, or what was your dream if not SNL?
My dream was always just to be in in the business in any capacity, right? Like I was really open to anything. I would have been perfectly happy with a writing job anywhere. Um, the fact that I was able to write for a season at SNL felt like the peak. I was like, this, I can hang my hat on this. I can work here for as long as they'll want me as a writer. I will do the job. Um, with such elan and gusto and enthusiasm. And then being new to the cast, when people were asking me if this was a dream of mine, the honest answer is it wasn't because I never thought it would happen. Like I never watched the show and thought it'd be great to be on it, Like I always watched the show and studied and examined everything on a production level and a performance level, but I never had the idea that like the show would ever have me. And when my managers asked me to put together a tape to audition for it, which was how I got the writing job, was I sent in a tape and auditioned for it. Um, I was like, I am just gonna do this on a lark. I'm gonna have fun with this. I'm gonna make the tape that I want and not what I think they want, because I don't think they'll ever hire me, because why would they ever need an effeminate Asian man on the show? But it's been so rewarding and surprising and delightful. Like I am so grateful to be there. Even in moments of like disappointment and defeat, like, when your sketch gets cut, which happens to all of us, no one's immune from it. No one's too big for that there. I just have to remind myself that this was never the plan and that I'm just along for the ride. And it's been
Mm.
a really beautiful journey.
Well, before we go, I want to talk Emmy Awards. You were nominated as a writer and then twice as an actor. What would it mean to you to walk up on that stage one day and accept a trophy?
It would be that would be another sort of like pipe dream. I've just always, I mean, now I really, this is the really hackneyed thing I'll say. It was just an honor to be nominated.
Mm.
And I'm really proud of those seasons. I'm really proud of last season. But I think like, the conversation was a little bit dulled because of the strikes with us, and we're a show that I think benefits from um recency and from like being on top of people's minds like all through the spring into May. Um, and I always share those moments with everybody at the show, with the cast, the crew, the writers, producers, everybody, because again, it is a group effort.
Mhm.
It would mean the world. I do also love that I am at a place now, sort of emotionally and personally and professionally, where I think, on my own rubric, like for my own, by my own standard, I think I'm proudest of this past season for myself the most. I feel like I had the broadest range. I got to like lead a cold open by myself. I got to like do all these different things, and I'm really, really proud of that. And so, um, you know, thinking about Emmys is always great, just in terms of like the wider year in television. That's been wonderful. But like for my own like rubric, I feel like I've had my best season so far, and so having that recognized in any way is great. But I feel like I've really been able to appreciate recognizing that in myself, and that's been really, really nice. And like we just had our finale, and I felt like something leave my body at the last good nights. I was like, oh, like you're like you did good, and like you should be happy with it no matter what. And I feel like everyone thinks that. Everyone at the show is really proud of the work they've done because we've all worked so hard.
Mm. Well, we have our fingers crossed. I'm rooting for you at the Emmy Awards this year, and have a good summer off. I mean, we'll
Yeah.
see you I guess in the fall for season 50.
Yeah, and we truly have no idea what's in store. Like, not even Tina know. We don't know. The only person who has any idea of what this next season is going to be is Lorne Michaels, and we trust him to steer the ship, and it'll be great.
Thanks a lot, Bowen.
Thanks, Marcus. Take care.